first question is, so you started SecMall and it's a very interesting model and has been very successful in transforming education system. So we want to know what are the guiding principles you thought of when you started it, and what was the need you felt, that something like that has to be there in the first place.
Initially, I started working with education, seeing that young people in Ladakh were facing a lot of problems. There was rampant failure in exams and so on. And therefore, we wanted to change the system rather than blame the children. That's how we started. But then, as I went deeper into the world of education, I saw that it is not just children in Ladakh. They have much more problems than others, but even elsewhere, it's not the best that a child deserves. So therefore, the start was with the shocking figures like 95% of the children who spend a precious quarter of their lives are stamped failure. And you couldn't have a system, whether it is a car factory or software factory, where 95% of the products fail, and better start introspecting about the system. So that's how we started working. But then education touches so many lives for such a length of their lives that we better set it right for the individuals and for the planet, because these are people who will manage this planet. And if they have the right connect and the right skills, they'll do a better job. So these were some of the principles.
So I think this leads to questions. So one is the situation you described, students failing and not able to cope up with the current education system. So the one question being, so this situation is not unusual for rest of India. Several states are struggling with this. So can a SecMall kind of model be taken to other places, and on large scale should it be applied, and should government intervene and take this kind of model to students who are not they have different capabilities?
Well, there are two parts to our work. One is to make the schools more meaningful and friendly to the children, especially government schools in rural India, which is where most of India lives. If we want India to be good, we have to make sure that these schools are good. Yeah? That's one part. That is being attempted through different programs like Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan and so on. But more involvement of the hearts of the people, is needed perhaps. But I would say there's a lot of attempt to do that anyway. The second part of our work is with those who are branded as unsuccessful or failures in this system. That needs to be taken up in many parts of our country and the world. We shouldn't lose hope and give up on those who are merely not doing well in a system that is itself questionable. You can't brand them as failure and make them feel even more broken. Whereas perhaps the system is the biggest failure, if there are any failures. So therefore, that needs to be taken up. And many times people ask me when I meet people in forums like this, can you help us do a similar school for those who are dropping out in Andhra Pradesh or in Assam? And I feel that it's not for somebody from Ladakh to come to Andhra Pradesh or Assam. It has to be people who are passionate about these issues in these places who should then spearhead, and we could, share our learnings, our failures, our successes, and help it happen so that mistakes are not repeated and so on. So government, which you asked, can help facilitate by helping passionate people with the resources in an earnest and transparent way. But other than that, when you are dealing with students who are in problems like failures and so on, it should be more people with a passion than a government machinery. Government can handle the bigger mainstream, but for pockets of children who do not conform to that, government is not the best. Government is very good at supporting solutions. It has to be initiatives of people who are passionate. So I happen to be passionate about these issues in Ladakh, so I started a small initiative. Similarly, we have to find other people who want to do and help them in every way, from government and from society, and we could solve this problem in finding gems out of the ones we think are rejects. There are a lot of great minds there, just branded as rejects. Our system's efficiency is very poor. Our reject includes a lot of gems. So if you have a gem factory, you are supposed to reject the stones, but a lot of gems are going out. So we need to correct that. Yeah.
So, I mean, you say, we are in your SecMol school, you're taking the rejected or the students who have failed the conventional education system. But, and in our society, we hate being labeled, but we are in business of labeling all the time. So we label this student is bad, this student is good, IIT is good, that institute is not good. But so there is some, when people fail, there is stigma associated with that, and it kind of goes with brings their psychology, confidence down. So in SecMol, how do you remove that? How do you bring students to a level that they start believing in themselves again, and also in the system, that they can be restored and system is working for them?
So it's not easy. What we believe or not has a lot of influence from what we have gone through. So a system that makes us feel small and broken may make it difficult for us to see that we are not, we are part of that system. So it takes a lot of what you could call unlearning or unschooling, yeah, to see that the problem really is not in me or me alone. This system itself doesn't mean much if you look at the bigger picture. Then they start seeing, so I was not just a bad person. There were challenges that I had. If you're not doing well, then you might as well understand why exactly you're not doing well, rather than blanket brushing with a black paint and saying you are useless. So identifying why you couldn't do well with the system where half the time you don't have teachers, or you have teachers who are not trained well or do not understand how children learn. You have schools and teachers who hand you a pen or pencil at 3 when your muscles are not even ready for that kind of fine motor coordination. You can't blame the child. And if you make the child see that it was actually not my childhood that was at fault, there was a lot of problems in the system, not that you feel vengeful against them, but you understand that my teachers themselves had a lot of problems. So I shouldn't just blame myself and think I am good for nothing, but I can rise above it and do well. And then we try to give them examples of all the people who have done so well with poor schooling or with no schooling. In fact, some of the brightest, memorable people have had hardly any schooling. And then people see that it's not all finished. I can fight back, do things.
So is this process one-on-one, or you sit with the group? How does because it's
Both,
a very challenging,
yeah,
and I believe it's most challenging to work with the psychology.
We don't go too deep and feel demotivated or think that everything is impossible. So we try what we can, and most of the times they work. So we try to make a community of people who each support the other, who have gone through similar experiences, and try and see that they can also rise and shine and
Just
catch up and do better even.
So you just say you started this quite early on, right after finishing engineering, and you were a man of what, 22?
Uh, No, I started before engineering. Actually, I was 19 when I started these things, yes.
That's
Yeah.
even more inspiring and amazing. So you don't really see quite often young men getting involved in a cause and dedicate their lives. So I think first question in this regard is who have been your role models? You could take up this challenge at age 19.
It's not about role models, it can be, but sometimes you have a big problem. It is human instinct to solve. You shouldn't ask somebody who's helping solve a problem, why are you solving? What is your inspiration? Yeah? If, say, your house was on fire, and if you were not even throwing water, you should more ask why are you not throwing water. It is most natural to do that. so
I think that's the best answer we could have gotten. And most embarrassing question, I must admit.
No. Most people ask me. No, not at all. By far not. I'm just amazed that people ask, so what is it that inspired you? And I think we should be sensitive enough as human beings that when you see somebody's pain, you act. And to act to solve somebody's pain should not be something to ask about. Why did you help that man fallen on the road? More should be, how can I do? Yeah? So that's something we need to sensitize in our schools, our society, that whenever there is a problem, we should rise to the occasion. And it should not even be a question, what inspired you?
So, but I think it's slightly related to what you just said. But do you think sensitivity comes natural to us? Because somebody might argue, working at IITs or even premier institutes, that's what we lack these days. The students are extremely bright, but when it comes to them, being sensitive about social issues, we don't see many examples. So, what would you think when it's natural to us, but we are not doing anything? Our house is actually on fire.
Yes. So I wouldn't call those people bright. Because intelligence should cover more things than just maths and physics, emotionally maturity and so on, than just intelligence of these figures and things.
Yeah, absolutely. So now you're moving from SecMol to higher, which is a university and which works on a much bigger scale. So are you scaling up the model of SecMol, and how are you, going to transition? So can we just know a little bit higher?
Yes, so with this alternative school, SecMol, we learned that failure is not really failure, in a system that we have, and they can do lots of interesting things when they are guided to do in ways that they like to do, especially through experientially engaging with things and applying it in life and so on. And seeing that even so-called failures can do well and sometimes better than those who don't fail, we thought this should go higher. If failures can do fine in a school like this, then how about the others? Generally, higher education has become so theoretical. It's all paper knowledge, paper exams, paper degrees, all paper, nothing real. And that's a sad way of spending our youth in, when we have so much energy to do so many real things. So therefore, we thought of scaling it up to an alternative university, and I would not like to call it alternative in, say, 20 years. Right now, it is how it is. Therefore, this would be seen as an alternative where young people engage in real life activities, applying more than only absorbing new information, but applying and making it help people and solve problems and so on. So therefore, we thought if a school can make if a school with teenagers can make a school become self-reliant financially, ecologically, which is how this school is, then how about young people in their 20s?
Correct.
Who have so much more capacity than even these younger people, you could do wonders. So we are trying to see if there can be a university where students do things, say 70% outdoors doing things, and yes, 30% learning from experienced, learned people and benefiting from their experience, but then taking it to solve problems. For example, if it is the school of, say, sustainable tourism in this alternative university, which seeks to solve problems in our context, which is mountains. So tourism is an issue. It's a problem, it's an opportunity. So suppose in this school, we have not just classrooms on hospitality, classrooms on management and so on. We have actually a high-end hotel that's run by the students themselves, managed by the students themselves, or low-end homestays that is managed, tourism programs managed by the students. And real tourists come and, benefit from these, and there's business and there's income, and that income that the hotel brings can pay for the university. Therefore, you don't need to charge the students then, because they're paying not in the conventional currency, they are paying with their sweat and imagination, which also happens to be the best way to learn. So they learn, they earn for the university, and university then can make it free of conventional payments, which makes education accessible to all, rich or poor. Same with applied ecology. So we are trying to have what we call live labs for each department or school. This is all yet to happen. We are in the process of launching these. So in applied ecology, you actually restore a climate change damaged valley and make the severeness of floods followed by droughts better. And when you learn on the job, you go back to your own part of the world and start applying the experiential knowledge that you gain. That would be more useful for them in their work. They'll be ready to work day one out of the institute, unlike what happens today, that universities produce, and then employers have to retrain to be of any use. So, just changing that, because people in their early 20s have a lot more capacity than just to listen and write.
That is absolutely true. So speaking of universities and big institutes, for instance, premier institutes, the one we are sitting here, NIPGR, IITs. So how can they be involved in this cause of reaching out to society and contribute? So do you think a small amendment can be done to the current way of running business?
Okay, two things I would say. Short term, that students in such institutions should again make it a point, and the institutions should make it a point that they apply somewhere what they learn, and thereby make it unforgettable, and start the seeds of what they would be doing in life already while they're in the institutions. They could associate with a village or an industry, wherever, but practical knowledge acquiring and application should be a part of this. But this is short term. Long term, I feel one of the problems, particularly with like IITs, we attract people who are very good at solving these multiple, choice questions and so on. That becomes the test of who is bright and who is not and so on. And you only get then people who are really good at that. Maybe not at how to use that, but just at solving these. And you get people who just came to the IIT to acquire that badge. Not really interested in engineering or the things that you learn, but just to become an IITian. There are better badges to have than to waste your 4 years and make somebody who was passionately interested in this very learning be deprived of all that. Whenever there is a wrong person who gets into a premier institute, you are not only doing not such great deal to yourself, you're also depriving somebody who could have made a great thing out of this education. So to correct that, what I've been thinking of late is that it's not the fault of the young people who come, because they are influenced by the society that they have around. So I wouldn't blame them. But one solution could be that the entrance, for example, is changed. It's the entrance that programs the entry right now. You know? As is the entrance system, so are the entries being made. So, for example, I'm just playing with the idea aloud, thinking aloud. For example, you have these multiple choices of mechanical answering of things, and I can understand why. You know, people can't be dealing with 50,000 applications going into the depth of how much who knows and so on. It's actually a lazy way of assessing who you get. Yeah? Lazy way, you're not doing more work, but you quickly mechanically test and then you get what you get, which I understand. So, for example, if say 500,000 people apply, it would be worthwhile to use this technique to bring it down to say 50,000. From 500,000 to 50,000, you bring down the number by using these standardized tests. But after 50,000, you really become selective and seeing what their background is. So, for example, I'm again giving an example. Suppose the premier institutes announce that so far there'll be a standardized test, but after that there'll be deeper assessment of people's passions in their lives. And even if you have a clause like, whenever two entries tie up for the position, for the test, then we'll go into the depth of who has actually done some application, experiential solving of problems using that engineering. For example, if it is for mechanical, we'll go into the depth of the one who has a record of applying engineering in life. And each has the same rank, but the one that has proven track record of using mechanical engineering will be taken. Okay? It makes sense. But more than that, what it will do is send a message to the hundreds of thousands of young people wanting to get into, say, IIT, that we need to actually apply. Who knows, tomorrow I am in that situation, this is what is going to help me through. So they'll start already in the school itself to, actually see if it is their passion, and if it is, they would have done something, applied somewhere, and solved some problems. And it's a mechanical way of getting this corrected a little bit. Normally passionate people will anyway have done it, with or without this requirement. But if there was such a system, so many more will take their science classes seriously and go out and do something in practice, even if out of this this fear of not being rejected in case of this. So you can, what I'm saying, tweak a little the entrance and spread a lot of pure learning by making pure learning valued at that level. Because today's study is oriented towards that kind of selection, rejection, commerce of sorts. So you might have to tweak it at that level also to make it valuable for them to have had that experience and that background. I was just giving one example. That's how we can maybe enforce the criteria whereby truly passionate ones get to come to these institutes where government spends so much resources. It's sad that some say, I don't know what percentage, 90 or something, don't get into the field that they choose. Yeah. They become whatever managers and so on. And yeah.
That's absolutely true. So you say, the students come out of Premier Institute, a lot of time employers have to retrain them. But it's not just the employers. In IITs, there are a lot of bridge courses. Students nowadays are coming trained or like prepared through the the coaching system. And the coaching system is rampant in our society, and we start preparing, sending our kids from ninth or as early as 8th grade, and it's a very different way of teaching, and then the cognitive ability. And now a lot of time IITs are investing a huge amount of resources in learning that kind of problem solving, where they are good at solving multiple questions, but they are not good at thinking about it. So do you, my one question is, does this concern you? I mean, as an educator, do you think is something we've made which is hurting our creativity?
So these entrance tests were actually designed to test people.
Correct.
Those have been hacked in a way that you can just make a machine that does it and the machine gets admitted. Yeah? I think that has to be really changed. And coaching institutes are nothing but producing these robots that would solve those. You don't know what else they can do, but they can do this little exam cracking. I think I'll connect it to the previous answer. If, for example, the government was to say that we'll make our entrance more holistic and profound, and have at various stages have a weightage given to experience and practical application and track record of application of these things, only somebody who has already done some things will really benefit from such an institute, right? If, for example, this was announced, then I normally don't want to, cut things that are not working. I would rather co-opt them. So the coaching systems have become a big problem because they make fake bright people who are not really bright but are bright at taking that exam, and the system cannot recognize between this and that. So it takes in thinking it is a true engineer, and what you get is a paper problem solver. So suppose this entrance was tweaked, and then the coaching centers have a role to play. I think they can be co-opted. Rather than becoming these trainers of paper problem solving, they become these experiential experience providers. So students go in the evenings to apply Bernoulli's theorem to how aeroplanes fly and so on. They still help in entrance, but help in the right ways. That makes this nation more innovative, more outgoing, testing, experiencing things. I would like to see a situation where all these coaching centers become value-adding institutes that makes people more mature, more experienced, and thereby also influence their entry into these institutes, which would be very fair. An institute that helps you, interesting ways of applying all the theories that you have learned and will be facing in the exams, actually adds value. That's where I feel it should go, rather than becoming a parallel system which hacks the system and pushes in people who might not be the best for that course or the cause. Yeah.
Since we have not much time, I want to bring the very important question which is also close to your heart. Global warming has become real now, and several parts of not just India, worldwide, are directly affected now. So it's no longer a question of whether you believe in global warming or not, it's here. So the question is, do you think such big, enormous challenges of our time can be solved with science and technology, or the society has to play a much bigger role?
So science and technology can do some solving, but if you leave it for medicines alone, they're like medicines to get well. If you just say there is a medicine, so let me do all the wrong things and let me just keep lying down like a potato, let me not or do the wrong things, or these medicines will cure me, it doesn't work. Yeah? You better keep a healthy fit, physique, and then you don't really have to depend on medicines except in some circumstances. Similarly, science and technology is good as a repair work and some solutions, but we have to cure within. So we have to, the solution should be more in how we live, our lifestyles, if we keep producing carbon dioxide and expect some scientist will absorb all of it through his machine, that would be a very silly way of dealing with it. We will first have to learn the sensitivity of how a planet lives healthy, what the balances are, and how we should coming down to simple things like how we should use public transport or bicycles or walk, keep our own bodies fit and that of the planet fit, and then smaller things could be expected from science, but yeah, not the other way. Yeah.
So I think you led up to another question, because unfortunately what we call development or developed societies, it actually essentially, and you touched upon in your talk, it means consumerism, consumption of more energy, and it actually leads to harm to our planet. So can there be another model which can be called a model of development, but not like what we have now?
Very good question, and I think we always had that technology. We only lost our path and went astray, whereas Western technology comes up with all these fancy gadgets and gizmos and so-called technologies. They are all to fulfill our desires, fulfill our desire, and it's like chasing shadows. You run after it, it goes even further. Enough is always a little more than what you have. This is the track we have chosen. Whereas thousands of years ago, whether it was Vedic knowledge or Buddha, for example, one teaching of Buddha that touches me the most is that technology. Yeah? Buddha said, for a human being, it is a greater achievement, carefully you can listen, for a human being, it is a greater achievement to conquer a single desire than fulfill 1000. Yeah? That's the technology we need. The inner technology of being contented with much less. Less is more. Being happy is not about, kilograms of resources and numbers of this and that and so on. Being happy is technology somewhere inside. That technology there is in our ancient traditions, whether it is yoga or vipassana or so. And India was a leader in that technology. And we lose sight of that and chase after things that get us more and more entangled into the problems that we see. So I would say we had a lot of wisdom. We have to draw upon them and be a global leader. I really believe India should be leading the world rather than chasing them into the dredges.
I think it's absolutely profound question, profound answer. So I'll end by asking you two questions. One, by
very
one,
greedy. You're greedy. Okay.
Influenced by Western. trained in West, it does this to you.
Okay.
So one is, you've had a quite an interesting journey and quite successful. But what has been what has been the biggest challenge in this entire journey, and how you dealt with it? Or was there any, or it wasn't?
Well, challenges are challenges when you see them as challenges. If you expect them and you are waiting for them, then what would seem like big challenges are only a part of the game. So I don't really make much about challenges. It is challenges that make the game interesting. You can't think of a volleyball match without a net. That would be like kindergarten. You would want some challenge to play that game. So I don't really, yes, in normal vocabulary, many challenges, but then that's what makes it interesting. So, yeah.
Really last question. So what advice you will give to our students?
I would simply say that think on your own feet. Don't borrow other people's thoughts, and make your own. Have the confidence of being original and thinking, and also the humility to learn from others. A balance of the two is what I would say.
With this, so with this, I will thank you for your time.